So, an intelligent man, if there is such a person, has to find out a way of living which is not going to sleep, which is not just vegetating, which is not just escaping to some fanciful, mystical visions and all that stuff, but a way of living in daily life in which conflict of any kind has come to an end. It is possible. I mean, I watched it all around me for the last 50 years, the battle going on around me. Spiritually, economically, socially, one class battling the other class. And the dictatorships, the fascists, the communists, the Nazis, you follow, sir?
Yes, I do.
All of them have their roots in this. Encouraging obedience, discouraging obedience.
Yes.
Imitating, conforming, obeying, all battle. So life has become a battle. And to me personally, to live that way is the most destructive, uncreative way of living. I won't live that way. I would rather disappear.
I think perhaps, and I wonder if you would agree, that some sort of confusion has arisen here in our minds when we identify ourselves with this battle in terms of your description of it. When we begin to think about the question, ought this to continue? And we have the image of battle before us. We tend to imagine to ourselves that what we're really talking about is the human equivalent of what is called nature read in tooth and claw.
Yeah, claw, right.
But if I'm following you correctly, this is a cardinal mistake, because in our previous conversations, you have, at least for me, very, very clearly indicated that we must distinguish between fear and danger.
Yes, yes.
And the animals, in their own environment, act with clean and immediate dispatch in the presence of danger, whereas it seems we're making a mistake if we attempt to study what we call human conflict on the level of this analogy.
No.
Because the analogy, if I've understood you correctly, simply doesn't apply.
Doesn't, no.
But don't you agree that this tends to be
rather,
done?
Sir, rather. We study the animal or the birds in order to understand man.
Right.
Whereas you can study man, which is yourself. You don't have to go to the animal to know man. So that is a really very important question, because I have, if I may talk a little about myself, watched it all. I watched it in India. The sannyasis, the monks, the gurus, the disciples, the politicians, all over the world. I happen to have somehow met them all. The writers, the famous people, the painters who are very well known. Either they have come, most of them have come to see me. And it is a sense of deep anxiety that if they don't struggle, there will be nothing. There will be failures. They will, that way of living is the only and the righteous way of living.
To drive oneself to be what is called productive.
Productive, progressive.
Progressive.
And we are taught this from childhood.
Oh, yes.
Our education is that. To battle not only with yourself, with your neighbor. And yet love the neighbor. It becomes too ridiculous. So, having stated that, is there a way of living without conflict? I say there is, obviously. Which is to understand the division, to understand the conflict, to see how fragmented we are, not try to integrate the fragments, which is impossible, but out of that perception, the action is entirely different from integration. Seeing the fragmentations which bring about conflict, which bring about division, which bring about this constant battle, anxiety, strain, heart failure, you follow? So that's what's happening. To see it, to perceive it, and that very perception brings an action which is totally different from the action of conflict. Because the action of conflict has its own energy, brings its own energy, which is divisive, which is destructive, violent. But the energy of perception and acting is entirely different. And that energy is the energy of creation. Anything that is created cannot be in conflict. An artist who is in conflict with his colors, he is not a creative human being. He may have perfect craft, perfect technique, a gift for painting, but that's...
It interests me very much that you've used the word energy here in relation to both activities.
Both, yes.
And you haven't said that the energy at root is different.
No, no.
The phenomenon is different.
Yes.
It would appear that